Welcome to the regular meeting of the Industrial Development Authority of the City of St. Louis, June 13th, 2024. Time is now 1:35. Try to be on time. Roll call, please.
Director Seward. Director Fall.
Yes.
Director Neal.
Present.
Director King.
Present.
Director Young.
Yeah.
Director Zarelli.
Present.
Chair Reed.
Aye, here.
We have a quorum.
We do have a quorum.
Is this person, who's this?
Before we
person?
get started, I'm going to say that we're in unusual
Is that the
confines
person?
for this hearing today. It's nice to be back in the old conference. Even though there may be some glitches, we'll do our best. We have happy to report that we are at full strength as a authority. And I have two new members that I want to introduce first. Director Neal. Welcome to the IDA board. You care to say something about yourself?
My name is Pamela Neal. I'm a transplant from Texas. I live in 11th Ward and just excited to be on the board. Thanks.
Great. And additionally, Victor Zarelli, welcome to the board.
Yeah, hi, I'm Victor Zarelli. Actually, this is my second meeting. That last meeting I called in, but couldn't hear me. That's life. I spent almost 50 years in corporate trust, so I'm quite familiar with glad to be on the board. I've lived in the city since 1970. Grew up in New Jersey. I set it up about 1970.
Great. Very good. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from May 9th, 2024.
So moved to approve.
Is there a second?
Second,
Roll call, please.
Director Young.
Aye.
Director Neal.
Aye.
Director Zarelli.
aye.
Director King.
Aye.
Director Fall.
Yes.
Chair Reed.
Aye. Motion passed. Next item, reconsideration of a revised resolution 24 IDA 05, the Ridge Crest project. Yeah,
And I will not go over, all the particulars of the project again from the memo that everyone was provided. Nothing in that memo has changed at the request of the board. There was community engagement with the developer in the neighborhood. So it is being brought back as requested last meeting for discussion and a vote again this month. Thank you.
Michelle, if I could, with what exactly was revised?
I think I could,
Nothing.
I can shed some light to that. So there was very light revisions in section 1 under authorization to note to accommodate some of the delay in issuing the bonds and getting financing in order. There had to be a slight restructuring of some of the parameters of the bond issuance. So the maturity date has been extended out by 1 year from June 1 of 2060 to June 1 of 2061. And the maximum interest rate has been increased from 10 to an allowed 15%. And those are the extent of the changes.
He's got to accept it.
Michelle, do you know if anyone's here?
There are representatives of the project.
Mr. Gorkin? Yeah.
He declined it.
Yeah.
He declined it.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay.
Mr. Gorkin. Okay. Okay. Well, Mr. Gorkin, do you have anything to report on the neighborhood engagement?
Yes, so since our last meeting, and again, how we left last meeting, my understanding was nothing further was required from us. some of the board members wanted to review the documents that maybe they didn't have a chance to look at prior to the meeting. And in terms of neighborhood association, they had scheduled a site visit post our last board meeting. They have come out to the site, and there were several, 3, 4, 5 folks that came out. It is my understanding, based on short email we received back and from the property management who conducted the site visit, that their site visit went well. All their questions were answered. And beyond that, the letter that we received, it is stating that while the neighborhood association is supportive of low-income housing redevelopments such as Ridgecrest, they do not want to approve and participate in a real estate, basically tax exemption pilot. It is our understanding that the neighborhood association believes that the funding from what could be real estate tax, basically abatement for Ridgecrest, is better spent on other neighborhood community initiatives, whether it's schools or other initiatives. And they believe that, our project has no place, in participation in that real estate tax exemption. So that's really where we left it with them. And our position is, okay, understood. We'll, I guess, just agree to disagree, and we will proceed without their support of the real estate pilot, and we will structure our project without this real estate tax pilot, just using 4% tax exempt bonds and federal tax credits, and work with MHTC directly, and we'll figure out how to do it without the pilot.
Very good. Any questions from any of the board members?
I have just a couple, sir. So I'm looking at, I appreciate you meeting with them. One of the concerns that their letter, and I understand that we are not the tax abatement entity, but one of the concerns was that they got the impression that foregoing the pilot, the tax exempt pilot, that the developer's position was then they wouldn't install safety and security measures because that's what the pilot was going to be for. So they would just forego additional safety and security measures. Is that accurate?
Well, so let me address this. So when we originally discussed this initiative with the neighborhood, they specifically suggested some enhancements that were not part of our, kind of call it security and safety package. For example, they wanted to do some stuff that was literally outside of the property, on the street, that had to do with removing some parking allowances for the vehicles, which again is outside. I think there was some discussion for maybe adding some additional cameras on top of what our proposal already was. I believe they wanted to have a voice in terms of what types of fencing and what types of gating there's going to be. Obviously, from our perspective, it behooves us, and it's in our best interest to have safe and secure communities. So I think it would be very fallacious to assume that, our incentives are not aligned in any way. But from the perspective of, look, we will listen and we will work with them, although clearly they don't want to support us, but we will do security and safety in a manner and a way we believe it needs to be done and what's feasible, based on our experience across the country and working with these types of properties. But no, absolutely, we're going to have which by the way, we are working with the St. Louis Police Department and some of the other departments, and we're coordinating with them how to reduce any kind of safety issues and how to work best with St. Louis PD to make sure they're also not inundated with calls, but at the same time, they're available to us for calls when there's something really requiring them and it's an emergency. And we've been working with them for the last, I want to say 8 months. And I think we have, I don't know if we have it in writing that's available right now to me, but we certainly have their support, and they're pleased in terms of how our cooperation is going.
The second question I have is another brief one. I appreciate you answering that question. The second one I have is brief, is that in your application, the estimate, and estimates are what they are, but the estimate $45,000 in hard costs per unit, with a total of $58,000 total cost per unit, comes up to between $4 and $5 million. But in the application where it's asked about the number of jobs, particularly the number of construction jobs for the project, it's not filled in at all. So I guess one of my questions is, if you're doing multiple million, in the application it says there's going to be multiple $1 million of construction, but no construction jobs, are filled in or anything on the economic growth and benefit portion of the application. So can you speak to that for me?
I'm not sure about, exactly what was, maybe what you're looking at in terms of what was filled out, what not, but, the project of this nature obviously creates economic impact, and our contracts are with a general contractor who employs subcontractors in a way and adhering to all of the compliances with the city of St. Louis, which is actually very rigid in compliance in terms of that we adhere to all of the requirements with employing various minorities and other requirements. We're doing another job right now, and I can, just being in these meetings attest to that. There is a very, very stringent oversight by the city of St. Louis to that extent. So, this is very directly related to the economic impact. So I'm not sure it's something happy to follow up with, but.
Yeah, it's just completely blank, and just completely blank.
I don't know, again, Jim, I don't know if this wasn't required to fill out or something like this, but.
Oh, no, that's why I'm asking. That's why I'm asking. You're working with, what general are you working with, or do you know offhand?
It's general contractor is Roanoke Development.
I'm sorry, who?
Roanoke Development.
Roanoke, okay.
Yeah, they're a local group.
And then the last question I had, and I promised you all this is the last one. In the market analysis document that was provided to us, in the conclusion, it has a couple of conclusions that the prospective rents that are going to be charged after the conversion, or after the updates, I'm sorry, it's not a conversion, are going to be elevated for the actually higher than required, or higher than they think the market analysis thinks is necessary, both for the area and for how the final product is going to be compared to the other low-income housing in the area. Essentially, the way I read the conclusions are that the subject property is in pretty decent shape already, while obviously there's going to be improvements to the subject property as part of this renovation. It's not going to improve them over and above the other available areas, our market, other available residences or low-income housing there after it's done. The rents are going to still be a little higher than is probably appropriate for the area, and what the area needs more is more housing rather than renovated housing. Again, this is the market study that we received as part of your packet. I was just wondering if you wanted to speak briefly onto that question about rent.
Right, okay, I will try to keep it really brief and not to bloviate on the whole subject, but basically, these rents, one, I do want to stress that that's not an impact on the tenants in terms of rent increases. This is the funding that's coming from federal government because it's a Section 8 property. And these are the rent levels basically that are required for us to be able to do this rehab. There's really no correlation here in terms of, there's really no connection, fortunately or unfortunately, how the program works in terms of supply demand need, in terms of creating new housing. It's like almost like a different funding bucket. You can think of it this way. There's nothing like we can do here besides just to make sure that this property is in as good condition as it can be for the next 15, 20 years. And again, it's the funding provided by HUD for us to be able to do these renovations. Again, everything you see also in the marketing studies, again, I know I'm on record, but I will still say that, you know, you have to take it with a grain of salt because you have to kind of put together a puzzle for everything to come together. I think if you were to go there and to look at the property and to do, you know, kind of deep dive, you would agree that the property does need to be renovated. And again, this is not the renovation that, you know, stays there for 5 years or 10 years. It needs to be good enough for 15. The other piece of it that with current ADA requirements on behalf of HUD and MHTC, you know, there's actually quite a bit of work that will be done for the path of travel that is actually on a hilly topography that we have here is actually quite expensive, which again does not necessarily add to the project's maybe appeal or aesthetics, but ADA requirements on all the properties when you do renovation, it's kind of you have to do it and to accommodate it, and you're spending significant dollars. So the rent increases really is what pays for all this and how this whole thing comes together.
Okay, this market study was prepared for LEDG Capital LLC. I'm correct that that's part of your group, right? It was prepared for people whose interests are aligned with yours. I just want to make sure I'm clear, correct? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's all that I have.
We don't write our own studies. We pay third parties to, they don't always say what we want them to say.
No, I understand. I just didn't want to, I understand. I just want to make sure I was reading it the correct way. Thank you very much, sir.
If I may, Director Fong, we have a person online here, Keith Jones, that represents the general contractor. You can maybe answer the labor questions you have. Could we bring on the?
He just has to, he's on the panel, so well, what happened?
Hello, can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to just add to the construction and jobs piece. So we've already started actively recruiting our MBE partners. We're number one, we have a lot of experience with the SLDC requirements as it relates to minority participation and boots on the ground. We're effective partners, and we've already, so we have a very strong ground game on getting meeting the goals. We're already trending in the right direction on all of our milestones for participation, and So we have, like I say, we have a very strong ground game and just wanted to provide that support to the Ledge team and make sure everyone knows that there's someone who's watching for workforce, pushing for diversity. And like I say, I didn't come in with specifics, but if you had any specific questions, I think I could answer a few. But I just wanted to make sure that Roanoke provided that support and make sure everyone knows that that is absolutely happening and it's happening at the front end.
I appreciate that, and that does lead me, since you're on the phone, does lead me to one question then. I appreciate the commitment to MBE, WBE participation, and I particularly appreciate the commitment to minority and women, actual boots on the ground, noses doing the work, because that's important too for our jobs. Does that monitoring go to requirements for prevailing wages as well?
So
Go ahead.
Dimitri, you were saying?
No, you go ahead.
What I do know is that we have the IDA and then also there's tax abatement. So yes,
Well, they're not doing tax abatement, he says.
okay, so depending,
But they're also like, not to get deep into it, but I think there are also different levels of different qualifications of prevailing wages. There's like state and city and something else. So the answer, Jim, yes, there are certainly prevailing wages component and requirement to it. I think it's a state, again, don't quote me, but I think it's called state level prevailing wages. And I think there may be some other level that we are not participating in just because it has to do with the pilot.
Yeah, the reason I ask is, because it's important to me. I'm a great advocate of making sure that the diversity of the workforce matches the diversity of our city, but not at the expense of somebody making less money than they should be making otherwise. And so that's why I asked those questions. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other directors with questions? Well, hearing none, would there be a motion to approve revised resolution number 24 IDA 05?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Director Zarelli. Director Young,
Aye.
Director King,
Aye.
Director Neal,
Aye.
Director Fall,
No?
Chair Reed,
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Item next, resolution 24 IDA 07. This is for 2000 North Broadway.
Yeah,
Michelle.
thanks, Joe. As I said, this is for 2000 North Broadway. It's multifamily housing revenue bonds, and the bond amount is up to $42 million. And I also think it's important to say that this is the preliminary approval and the inducement resolution. So this project will be coming back for the final approval at a later time. The total project cost is $65,979,582. There is additional public assistance coming in the forms of low-income housing tax credits as well as historic tax credits. This project has a 20-year tax abatement that has been approved at 15 years at 95%, then 5 years at 90%, and that was through ordinance 71328. This project has also received approval of the alderperson for the ward. The developer will be 2000 North Developer LLC. Borrower is 2000 North Partners LLC with 2000 NMM LLC as the proposed managing member. The property manager will be the Sandstone Group. Bond counsel is Waylon Watson of Gilmore and Bell. These bonds are expected to be directly purchased by banks that will be identified by the borrower. Some additional information. An inducement resolution 22 IDA 01 was previously approved by the IDA on behalf of a prior owner. Copies of the resolution and board minutes have been provided. Subsequently, interest in the property and project were acquired by the current developer. This project involves the redevelopment of 147,000 square foot standard stamping building, which is situated on 1.66 acres. It's located approximately 1 mile north of downtown and in the near north neighborhood. The standard stamping building will be developed as a residential property with a full renovation of the interior and exterior of the property. It will include 177 residential units that will be affordable at 60% of the area median income. Construction will include shoring the foundation and installing solar panels on the roof. The average dollar amount to be spent per unit is $372,766. This is a certified historic structure, and the partners of 2000 North Partners LLC intend to preserve the facade of the building. Parking accommodations will include 106 interior spaces with an expected 50 to 60 along Chambers and Second Street. And the resolution is attached. And we do have a representative of the developer as well as Wayland Watson here, if there are any questions.
Any questions of the board?
The building.
I do have one question.
Who's first?
Okay, Director. So, Burrell.
The building abandoned empty now.
I believe so. I drove by it yesterday.
All right.
Yes.
I'm just speaking to the mic
Can you hold the mic a little closer, Director?
so they can hear you.
Okay, Director King.
My question is, who's the borrower? Because it says the proposed where was it in there? It said something to the effect it had not been organized or funded yet. Forgive I just lost my place on that. But an entity yet to be formed by the borrower. So who is the borrower?
I can answer that question. I'm here representing the development team, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, so the borrower is a venture between Saul Urban's Lodging to Residential Fund, which is a fund that will ultimately have about 150 million in assets under management. It's an equity fund. They own 50% of the project. And then my company, which is ABC Realty Advisors, owns the other 50%. I'm also a partner with Steve Smith on the Mansion House, which is just a mile up the road, which is a $90 million renovation of that 29-story tower that sits next to the Hyatt and looks down on Arch Park.
And is that, I'm assuming that the Mansion House has already gone through approval and you're in that process with that one. So we've had relations with the borrower in the past, or this group of individuals in the past.
Well, that's correct. I'm involved in the Mansion House. I'm one of the general partners in the Mansion House. So, I know that there are some things that we've done with the board there, including requests for tax abatement. This is obviously a deal that was teed up to go before COVID hit with Blackline, and Blackline's costs exploded on them. So we came in and bought them out and have refreshed all of the applications that they had in place and improved, I think, the design as well as the shoring of the building, which was a critical element as far as we were concerned, given that, it's an older building and we've had a lot of structural reviews on the building. But this is a great opportunity to invest 65 million in an area that desperately needs investment. It's also an area that desperately needs housing. You have a lot of industrial and various jobs in that North Riverfront neighborhood, but really no quality housing. So we think this is going to be a real opportunity to provide some quality housing at a discounted price based on the credits that we've received at 60% of AMI, and to invest a lot of money in a market that could use it. I think it can be a real linchpin for the North Riverfront market.
And then one final question based upon just something you said. I just wanted, for clarification purposes, you made the comment tax abatement. This board does not get involved with tax abatements.
Right, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just
no,
for
we applied,
clarification.
yeah, we applied through the SLPs. You're correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from the board?
Briefly, on this application, there is a economic growth and benefit, so that I appreciate that, with quite a few construction jobs. Do you have the general, selected yet, or is it too early for that?
Well, it's a little early. Look, we've relied on Graython, who has an office on 4th Street, to kind of work with us on the project, but we're also talking to Ben Hur, John Stubbs' company. We're going to bid it out. Okay, so that bid process is just in motion right as we speak now. We filed for building permits about 2 weeks ago, and I think to firm up those bids, we're waiting obviously to get a little farther along in the building permit response process. But we'll firm that up here over the next 2 weeks. We plan to have all the bidding in and completed by early July. So, look, it's going to be a community-based effort as far as job creation goes. I don't need to tell you, we noted that in the application.
No, like I said, I appreciate it. I appreciate the application, and as an aside to Mr. Morrow and our staff, I appreciate you getting us board members all this information ahead of time. It's very helpful. But like I said, I appreciate it. Just thought I'd ask while you're here, and I understand that if it's premature, it's premature. Not a problem. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It is a preliminary review, so it has to go to state for allocations and come back.
I understand that. Yeah, this is for
we have been awarded credits under Section 42 by the MHDC, which obviously we have to do at least 50% of the project as tax exempt.
Any further questions of the board? Well, hearing none, would there be a motion to approve resolution 24 IDA 07?
Director Young moves for the adoption of the motion.
So, Director Zarelli.
I'll second. I'll change the second.
Oh, you'll change that. Roll call, please.
Director Neal,
I'm sustained.
Director Fall,
Yes.
Director Zarelli.
Aye.
Director Young,
Aye.
Director King,
Aye.
Chair Reed.
Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Is that microphone on show?
It should be. It should, you can stand there.
So motion carries. Item next.
And I got to do this in 4 years, so.
This is the first time we'll get a full report. I'm ready.
Yeah,
Go
he's
ahead.
gonna have to do it.
So not a whole lot of, this board doesn't, it's not real complicated. You issue bonds, you make fees on those bonds, and you pay SLDC, who staffs this organization, for a management fee. That's how you get the money, and that's what you do with it. As you see down there, there's no expenses. The outlay of cash is below the line at $100,000. That's the fee that IDA pays to St. Louis Development Corporation. Okay, and then your income is up above. Monty, you did close the Union Station deal this month, so 185 grand. That's a big chunk. So you're a little bit under 500,000 for the year, which I'll tell you from years past, it's been back in the day, 20 years ago, that was a normal year, but it's been real dry for the last 10 years at least. But the bottom 2 lines tell you the story. You started in negative 35,000 in retained earnings. We paid SLDC. We've already actually paid them their fee for the year, 100 grand. After all that's said and done, we still have 328 grand in cash, which is a good news. That's the good news. The bad news is, because we did well, South Avenue, but we'll probably participate a little higher next year in our fee to St. Louis Development Corporation. So when I come to the board, it'll be above 100,000, probably 150, maybe 200,000. But I will also tell you, in years past, it's been as high as 400,000.
Yes.
That's what I have for you. Any questions?
Quick question. Is
Go ahead.
that a calculated or is that dictated to us from the SLDC? You know, on what that annual fee would be?
No,
Or
it-
is it just out of the goodness of our heart, we give them a part of the funds that we make in there?
So we look at all our smaller agencies under the SLDC banner. And it's really based upon the ability to pay, what they have, the wherewithal to do what they can.
And that's just I guess I'm a little confused on that. So who makes that decision?
Well,
We make
it's,
the recommendation and we make the decision? Is it recommended by the SLDC on what we pay each year?
it is, the controller puts it together with my help a little bit. Neil oversees it, and absolutely it goes to the SLDC board for approval before it comes to you all.
Okay. Thank you.
We've always voted for
What's that?
it, and we've always voted for it.
Is that, has it been passed? Did it go to the SLDC board?
It goes on next Thursday.
That's what I thought.
Okay, well, thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything?
No, I just wanted to just thank and welcome the new members and thank you all for your participation. Again, as CEO of St. Louis Development Corporation, we have 9 development boards that we oversee, and IDA plays a critical role in helping drive economic development forward for the city of St. Louis. Recognizing that this is a volunteer board and your service is definitely appreciated and welcome. Again, if you all ever need anything from me, I am always open and available to respond and follow up with any questions or details that have been asked. So if you need any information that's needed from me, ask them.
Well, seeing nothing more for the good of the order, the next meeting will be July 11th, 2024. Would there be a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So, second,
Seconds.
all right, we stand adjourned at 10 minutes after 2.